Good morning and welcome to the September meeting of the Finance, Efficiency, Economy, and Sustainability Subcommittee. We'll go ahead and start today's meeting like we always start this subcommittee meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Nowakowski, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We were provided all the, and then also wanted to mention that we have Councilman Valenzuela with us via phone. So we have all four members of the subcommittee with us. And the minutes were provided of the June meeting to all the members. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? The minutes pass unanimously. We do have a very full schedule for this this month's meeting. Big agenda. Items 3 through 6 are for information only. We don't have any presentations planned, but do we have any questions from the members of the subcommittee on any of the items 3 through 6?
Let's see. On number 4, I do.
Yes, on number 4, city-owned property update. Councilman Nowakowski.
You know, I'd like to really have staff look at bringing those items to, or those properties to the council district, but also that we can start talking about what would be the best use of that property. For example, if we bought property that's supposed to be a park and it's zoned in a certain for a certain purpose, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to use it for a thrift store, so in a neighborhood that would probably protest that. I want to make sure that we're good neighbors. If there's a community center that was supposed to be built on that property and all of a sudden we're building apartments or so, and that people were looking for some type of social services on there. So I think the council members know their areas or districts very well, and I think it should be the best value, but also the best price that we can get for it. But sometimes the usage the community leaders were fighting for certain projects and certain things that they would like to see in their neighborhoods, and I just want to make sure that somehow, some way, we're not just going for the top dollar, but also what's the best use or what fits in that neighborhood. And I think it really is up to that council member to sit down with the real estate department and you all to kind of figure that out. And I'd like to see how we can do that.
Chairman, Mr. Nowakowski, next subcommittee meeting is probably a good time for us to bring back the results of property sales so far and talk about the process. And I think that's a good opening for us to do that. We now have some track record where we have sold property and experienced the neighborhood issues and the zoning issues. We could bring those back, look at them, and talk about how the process is working from your perspective and any changes that, such as that, or if there are any others, we could recommend those as well.
As long as it's thoughtful for the community and also you have some input from the council member of that district.
Okay.
I think that'd be great.
And Councilman, I think that's a great point. I've had a couple properties already sold up in my area, and the real estate department spent a lot of time with me, and I was actually able to go out and do some neighborhood meetings about it. I think that's a huge issue, and I appreciate you raising that so that we keep that focus on as we do try and look at if there are more opportunities for sales that could generate more revenue for the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have in this list of items 3 through 6, we have the Technology Summit update. And we actually have a couple of the members here with us today who are serving on the Technology Task Force, and did want to take the opportunity to recognize them. David Stevens, I believe, is with us from Maricopa County. Thank you, David, for your participation in this important project and for being here today. And then also Susan Annabelle with Cox Communications is here as well. Again, thanks for all the great work that you're doing, and I want to thank Councilman Nowakowski, who was someone who actually called for this technology summit, and I think it's moving along very well. And again, thanks for all your efforts.
Mr. Chairman, if I might also just draw your attention to item number 3. Councilman Nowakowski had actually asked for this, I think, at the end of the last year.
Right.
And it coincided with something that's a little known fact of the city charter, is that the city auditor, who's here, Bill Green, is required to give a report every month to the council about the city's financial position. And we've been doing that. It's been online and it's sort of been hidden, but this has given us an opportunity to change it so Neil and his staff and the auditor have worked to make it much more graphic and user-friendly, and it also comports with the charter requirements to do that. So that's in the packet. It's too thick to print in our efforts to be conservative, to conserve paper, but the link is here for people to see, and we just encourage people every month to go take a look at that. It's a way to track the city's financial performance. I know Councilman Nowakowski had asked about that in June.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Vice Mayor.
Well, I wasn't going to ask, but now I'm going to since we stopped. So you and I have talked a couple times, both before this fiscal year started, but now the fiscal year has started. There have been a couple articles in the paper recently, and I think rightfully so, about the financial position of the city. I think there was one just within the last day or so. I can't remember exactly when I looked at it. But I've been looking at the numbers at the state level, which there's definitely been, I think you used the word softening. It definitely hasn't been positive. There's been a lot of articles related to the governor's race about what the next governor is going to do. Now, they've had some lawsuits and so forth, but there's also, because of this economic, I don't want to say downturn, I know that we tend to do better than the rest of the state as a whole, generally speaking, on some measures, but that's got to affect us. I mean, where do we stand?
Thank you, Chairman Gates, Vice Mayor Waring. On Tuesday, the 23rd, we're actually doing a full report to the council on the city's budget position.
That's why I wasn't going to ask,
Yeah,
but
no.
now that we did.
No, so what that will do is we will go over 2 really important pieces of information next Tuesday. One is the spending, how we ended the year in spending, which is actually good news. It's about $18 million under projection. So that creates a beginning balance for the city that gives us resources. The other thing we're doing, and we're wrapping that up now, is a review of the actual sales tax collections, and then looking forward based on the last 3 to 4 months of those sales tax collections, what our projections would be for the year. Because if you remember, we built the budget for this year back in February and March, and it was based on projections, what we thought the rest of the year would be, and then what this year would be. Now that we actually have actual results, we're going back in, reassessing our economic forecasting. We've been working with the University of Arizona Forecast Project to do that, and we will be able to update where we think we are this year in terms of revenue collection. As you said, the JLBC prints something every month, and they've been talking at the state level about state sales taxes softening or losing momentum. We've seen somewhat parallel in some areas of the city's collections, although we did end the year within 0.1% of projections. There are specific categories we're really focusing on to see what they're doing: city sales tax, vehicle license tax, those sorts of things. So we'll have a full and comprehensive discussion of that on Tuesday, September 23rd with a report.
Okay, thank you for that update. Anything further on those items? All right, then we will move to, we have consent action items, and we have listed 7, 8, and 9. What I'd like to do is pull 9 out and just see if there would be a motion to approve 7 and 8, or alternatively, if you have any questions, let me know. But otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve items 7 and 8.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, 7 and 8 pass. And then that takes us to number 9, which is the equipment maintenance management services contract. And we have Neil and James on this. Do you have maybe a real brief touch upon what this item is? I know I have a card to speak from the public as well.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. We have been working on a maintenance management services due process and due diligence effort. We've been doing that for some time. There is a procurement at the state level that is available to cities. There are 2 offerors or contractors under that contract. We've done some examination of some of the things that are available at the city, some pieces of equipment that are available at the city to be included in one of those contracts at the state. And the preliminary report that we received from one of those contractors indicates that there are potential savings. We are recommending that we take some additional due diligence time for really a couple of reasons. One, some of the items that could be included under the contract, for example, Cisco networking equipment is scheduled to be replaced by the Information Technology Services Department, at which time it would be under manufacturer's warranty for some period. In addition, we currently have a RFP out on the street for office automation equipment and a new way to manage office automation equipment that is supposed to or promises to generate significant savings for the city. Taking those two things into account, what we're trying to do now is look for other opportunities at the city where we might be able to identify specific pieces of equipment or types of equipment that would fit under these contracts. In addition, as a result of the way the contracts were written at the state, we would have to enter into negotiations with the potential offerors to make sure that we got the best pricing and, in addition, the best terms and conditions. So what we're recommending is that we would go ahead and do that due diligence, and hopefully by the end of October, we would identify all the pieces of equipment that make sense to be included in such a contract, and then enter into negotiations under those state contracts with the two offerors to determine which offeror can provide the best pricing, terms, and conditions to the city, and hopefully have that done in December for a recommendation to council by the end of the year.
Okay, great. So we would do that, then just to be clear, without actually doing our own RFP, we could just piggyback upon the state contract and conduct the negotiations with those entities that would be interested.
Mr. Chairman, we do not have to get involved in our own RFP. If it comes to our attention that that is the best avenue for the city, we will certainly inform the subcommittee in December.
Okay, thank you. If it would be all right with my colleagues here, if we can take the public comment. Mark Osborne. Mark, if you want to come on over to the microphone.
Thank you, Councilman Gates. For the record, my name is Mark Osborne. I'm with the firm of Kutek Rock here on behalf of SU Group. We're one of the two vendors who were awarded the state contract. And basically what the concept this does is you consolidate your maintenance and warranty contracts under a more uniform system, and in many cases saving the government between 15 and 35% off their existing manufacturer's warranties. The existing manufacturer's warranties typically have a very high markup in them, sometimes in as much as 50%. And so we're able, using usually the same vendors that the city currently uses to provide the same service, because we have those folks on contract and we put them on a time and material basis. As some of the staff have indicated, we did kind of a mini pilot, and the way these usually work is we basically look at your contracts, we give you a specific quota and a specific piece of equipment, and then the local government can decide whether to include it, not include it, and modify any terms. We will match the maintenance and warranty terms that you have in your existing contracts. So if the state's a little different, we will match yours, and that was, I know, a big issue. So the city has all the flexibility to add more equipment, delete more equipment. One of the things that's also a side benefit of going to a system like this is it gives you management reports on all types of equipment, so you can see what types of equipment tend to burn out faster, or if there's a department that is overutilizing equipment, or we can provide kind of policy information for policymakers. It's included as part of the fee and the assessment. As staff indicated, I think they are taking a very appropriate approach to doing this. I think focusing on the larger service warranty contracts is probably the best way to go. And at any time, you can modify the mix of equipment you have. So it's a pretty flexible program. We won the RFP at the state level in February, and we're going through a similar process right now with the state, going agency by agency and saying, this makes sense to include, this doesn't. And so it's been pretty successful. To give you an idea of the cost savings, we pulled about 5 contracts that the city currently has, valued at about $758,000 per year. We were able, on a per year basis, to save about $219,000. So over a 4-year period, that's about $1 million. So once you look at a broader scope of those contracts, I think you'll see that the savings are pretty robust. And it's a program that's worked in many municipalities across the country and about 22 states as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any questions from my colleagues?
Thank you.
All right. Well, it sounds like, based upon what we've heard here, that you are looking for action from the subcommittee, sort of for a direction of October to have identified what that equipment is, and then coming back to the subcommittee and then full council in December for approval, again via the contracts that are already in place with the state. So I would entertain a motion to that extent.
I make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
And I'm happy to second it, although I know we do have Councilman Valenzuela on the phone. Perfect.
I'm happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion passes. Thank you very much for your work on this. And that takes us to item number 10. And this is Bioscience High School Sustainability Officer Student Council position.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm pleased to introduce a couple folks who will introduce our guests. First, I think this is the first official appearance of our new Chief Sustainability Officer, Mark Hartman, who has joined the city to help us with sustainability on a system-wide basis, and you'll be seeing much more of him in the coming months. Phil McNeely is our Environmental Programs Manager for now. Phil has some exciting professional growth in his future that Mark's going to tell you about. I just want to express appreciation to Phil for his work. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Yes, good morning. Good to be here. I will let Phil talk about this specific program and did want to acknowledge him on, I guess, October 10th is his last day here at the city. I'm really glad that he's not going far. He's going to the county, working on air quality, leading the air quality efforts. And so he's still, in a way, helping Phoenix become more livable. It's great that I've really appreciated in the last, as Phil's been kind of downloading a lot of the information and things that work, and I've been really impressed with a lot of the initiatives and his leadership. And so thank you, Phil, for your contributions. And Sustain Phoenix actually has a number of initiatives led under Phil's group, and it certainly looked at like brownfield rehabilitation and our sustainable purchasing, air quality, our compliance, our whole compliance process, GHG inventory. And this particular run around literacy is really important. There's 372 K-12 schools in the city and almost a quarter million students. You figure, wow, it's like what a big part of our population that is. And when you consider their families, over half our population has kids that are in the schools. So a great way to engage the community. And if, as you'll hear about, they're actually a great way to really engage the community, because they can speak to their parents pretty easily, encourage their parents, and call them out. So a great initiative to actually look at how to engage students. And so I'll pass it off to Phil, kind of talk about the specific literacy project.
Yeah, Chairman Gates, members of the subcommittee. Yeah, we have a literacy project, and we started this a couple of years back, and we wanted to use our existing network. So we developed a curriculum for the 45 Phoenix after-school centers, and we worked with our green team and water and public works. It does not work. Yeah, and what we did is we developed a curriculum for energy, recycling, water conservation, and air quality. And that was the first step, and we did 101 presentations. But the second step was we're trying to get high schools to change their student council where they can actually have a sustainability officer in there. And we've been working on that, but Bioscience is the first school that did that. And so we want to introduce two people. First is Brianna Diaz. She's the president of the student council. She's a senior. And then right next to me is Clarissa Smith. She is the first sustainability officer on the student council, we think, in Arizona and maybe in the country. We can't find any other school that's doing that, and we hope this spreads. So Clarissa, you can talk about your goals and what you plan on doing.
Okay. So I'm interning with the Office of Environmental Programs right now, and I'm really excited to work with the city and all the partners that they've been introducing to me. I ran on a platform of facilitating communication between student government and the various student-led sustainability initiatives. We currently have a hybrid vehicle that students are working on and a solar charging station for it, and just working with the various clubs on campus. I have a couple goals. Some of them include installing water bottle filling stations around campus, just greening school events. We're creating a community learning garden, and ultimately I want to create a manual so that other high schools in the state, in the district, in the country can adopt sustainability officer positions in student council. And if any of you would like to arrange a tour, be happy to show you around. On the 27th, we have the USGBC Green Apple Day of Service event, and love to see you there.
Well, Clarissa, first of all, congratulations on your victory.
Thank you.
Not only did you win the election, but it was talk about an innovative and groundbreaking position that you're in. That's fantastic, and congratulations as well to, is it Brianna? For your leadership, winning your election, and looks like you guys have a very strong team here. This is exactly the type of things that we're focused on. You know, we do wear a lot of hats in this subcommittee, but sustainability is a big piece of what we do. And we know that, you know, for us old folks here, you know, there's only so much we can do, but you guys are the future. And I know I have two daughters who are 13 and 10. I know Councilman Nowakowski has children who, just like mine, are pushing us to be more focused on sustainability, and so we're looking to all of you as the next generation. And I think we should send out a challenge to all the other schools in Arizona now that they should adopt these positions as well. So congratulations, and I'm sure Councilman Nowakowski and my other colleagues would love to work with you to obtain these goals. That is really exciting and inspiring. Also, too, I'd just like to briefly thank Phil for all you've done. It's been a real pleasure working with you over the years. A big loss for the city, but like Mark said, I know you will continue to help the city in that position. I used to serve as the Clean Air Ambassador from Phoenix, so I know that we'll continue to work closely with you, but we're just so fortunate to have had you here for many years, making us an environmental leader, so thanks. And Mark, really excited. We've already had the chance to meet, talk about issues like energy efficiency and solar, which is a real focus that we share, and just look forward to all the work that we're going to do together. And Ed, thanks for hiring Mark. Appreciate that. That's been a goal for a long time of the council. So thank you so much. Councilman Nowakowski.
Just a little comment on Phil. Phil, I just want to really thank you for all that effort in the brownfield, especially in South Phoenix and District 8 and District 7. I know you put a lot of work into it, and you can see the development cleaning up that area is really, really has gone a far way. So I really want to thank you for that. And the air quality, you continue to fight that battle, and now you're going to be at the county helping us even more so. So thank you for everything you've done and all your efforts in cleaning up our community and making it safe for our kids and for future generations. And you students, exactly what the chairman was talking about is you are the future. You know, you go home, you teach your brothers and sisters, the kids from the neighborhood about how to make sure that we turn Phoenix green. And just thank you for being a part of that green team that we created. And we got to spread that word out and make sure that every single high school has the same effort. So thank you so much for your leadership. And I think Kate Gallegos has to look out for the future there, right?
Absolutely, that's right.
I can see some council members coming up in the near future. So thank you all.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have item 11, and this is, we actually talked a little bit about the surplus property earlier. This is a really exciting one. I'm really excited about this item. It's the property update GIS mapping. I know some members of the council have asked for a way to quickly be able to look at inventory the city property, and that's exactly what we have here, thanks to the good work of staff. So Neil, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an outstanding improvement over what it is that the city had previously. With me is Mary Vivian Withrow, the Deputy Director in the Finance Department, and Tom Elder from the Information Technology Services Department. Also, Debbie Cotton is here today, and Quan Mitchell, I think, was here earlier, who also played a role in developing this product. You know, we spent a lot of time trying to really clean up our fixed asset records and turn them into real estate records. And so we have gone ahead and completed that work. We'll always be trying to make sure that's up to date and cleaned up. But since then, our friends at ITS, as promised, have delivered this technology that will allow you to see the parcels throughout the city, who owns them, a lot of assessor information, et cetera. Tom is very good at demonstrating this, so I'm just going to turn it directly over to Tom.
Alrighty, thank you. Good morning. This is the tool that we've put together that have combined all the hard work that finance has put into matching their records with the parcels that the county recorder's office shows that we own. And this tool makes it available for you to look at either as a map or as a list of properties. So you can have information a couple of different ways. This works like just about any other map browser that you may have on the internet. You can go ahead and pan and zoom just using a mouse or cursor into the properties that, or the area of town that you might be interested in. The more you zoom, the more you see. Oops. Just getting used to this mouse. So I've zoomed into the area of Maryview Park. What you see in the blue shaded area is all city-owned parcels. The blue dots are city facilities that are on those parcels. And the lightly outlined parcels are all of the county assessor parcels. And if you click anywhere in a parcel, you can get more information about that parcel. So what you're seeing with that first of two panels is the information about the county parcel. If you click on this link here, you can go directly to the county's website and get all of the information that they have about that parcel, including the ownership, the valuation, and so on. The second panel of information will show you the information about the city-owned parcel. And this is where the information that finance has gathered through SAP comes together with the county assessor information. The first few lines are from the county, and then down below you can see where we have added information concerning the department that owns the parcel, the city council district it happens to be in, the zoning for that, and any notes or other description from SAP that describes that property in more detail. If you click on one of these little blue dots, for instance, you can also get information on a third panel that is specific to that actual facility. So this would be Maryview Swimming Pool. That link there will take you to the web page that most closely relates to that actual facility. Going to zoom out again. So you can pan and zoom around the map and see things on that basis. You can also search for properties by an address. Here's one I've typed in already. That will take you straight to a property. You can also put in an assessor parcel number in the same field and go straight to that parcel if you're looking for a specific one. You can change the background on these maps to be an aerial photo too if you want to see the actual structures or whether or not the parcel is vacant, or any other surrounding information.
Can you click on that triangle right over there?
Sorry, which
Right
triangle?
off of Maryville, what is that? Maryville, yeah, Parkway Terrace.
Oh, would you like me to
Oh, the
click here?
train,
sir?
no,
little
the little
one, yeah.
tiny one,
South of Campbell.
right there, that
Right
little
there.
tiny one, yeah.
And let's see what the city database says about that. It is owned by Streets, and it is officially an island.
Now, is there a way for us, I'm sorry, Chairman,
Yes, Councilman.
is there a way for us to actually put down if it was purchased by the general fund or grants or, because I think a lot of times that our question is if it's actually property that we can sell or if there's a reimbursement to the federal government or to our city or just to the department.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Nowakowski, I think research typically has to be done almost on a parcel by parcel basis, because some of these records are so old that it would take quite an effort to be able to get that information out there for the thousands of parcels we're talking about.
But just to follow up on the councilman's question, if there's an interest and, you know, it's brought to the council or brought to, obviously that's something that you can
Absolutely.
obtain. And we would know that before you would ever bring one of those parcels, say, before
Right.
this committee or the full council for a potential sale.
Correct.
Okay. That's a good question. Any other questions or kind of continue with the presentation?
I wanted to show next, you can search individually, or you can search for groups of parcels that you may be interested in. I'm going to clear this previous. Well, this search shows, for instance, all of the properties owned by aviation. If I move this out of the way a little bit, you'll see some properties over by Luke Air Base also that are owned by aviation. So you can search by department. You can also search by council district. Let me clear the previous search. Put any city council district number in, and all of the, let me get rid of this. All of the city-owned properties within each council district can be shown. And pardon me for the jumpy mouse. You see that those are all the properties that occur within District 5. If I just scoot it out of the way a little bit, the list you can bring up as a pull-up from the bottom. This is going to be tough. Of the viewer itself. So what you have here is a list of all of the information about those properties highlighted in red on the map above. That list can be exported to a spreadsheet if you want to take that list, create a report out of it, or combine it with any other information that you might have. At this time, that's it for the demo. Unless you have some questions, I'll be happy to show some more examples.
Councilman Nowakowski.
You know, I just want to tell you that what a great tool. What a great tool to attract businesses or even for nonprofit world or just for the community themselves to look at all the different parcels that the own. So I just really want to thank you, Tom, for creating this. I mean, it's incredible. And also Neil for all your hard work in making this happen. I know that about 3 years ago I asked for all the parcels with park parcels within District 7, and it took quite a bit of work. Now this is all at our fingertips, so thank you for using technology to its fullest.
Any other comments or questions? Yeah, I completely agree. This is going to be great. And now, is this available to the public?
This is not available to the public right now. This is available to internally.
Okay.
Right now, it can be made available to the public.
Yeah, I mean, my thought is, as Councilman Nowakowski said, is, you know, folks, developers, nonprofits, et cetera, have that interest to be able to look at it and identify those properties would be a nice addition. I mean, even just internally, this will have a lot of uses, but I think that would just supercharge it to make it available to the public as well, if that's a possibility. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your work. Next is item 12, Energy Utility Account Audit Services. Mr. Trujillo, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. Public Works is here today to talk a little bit about our energy program and get approval to do an RFP for energy audit. So a little bit of background with our program. We currently have approximately 4,000 accounts that we manage throughout the city with APS, SRP, and Southwest Gas. And with each one of those, they're all different because of the nature of our business and the size and the complexity. The rates are different as we start moving forward. So you know, and again, they're based on size and utilization and the different profiles. So it's a very complex process that we have in the city, and then the type of rates that we have depending on the service provider. And we do have an opportunity to possibly identify errors, overcharges, or some corrections that need to be made on whether it's the rates or depending on the meter size. So we would like to bring in a company at no cost to the city, and it would be paid out a percentage of the savings that the firms would find based on their audit of all our accounts. So we do have a system that is centralized, and we do have one person that does a lot of auditing, but there's only so much they can do. And because of the complex nature of our business, it would be good to have a firm come in that has this experience and has done it before to look at our accounts and see if there's some opportunities of finding some corrections, some errors, or being overcharged in some of our accounts. So what we'd like to do is issue what we'd like to do is to issue an RFP in the late fall of this year and possibly select a vendor in December of 2014. And then we're also requesting subcommittee approval for City Council to issue an RFP. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Questions from my colleagues? Councilor Nowakowski.
Now, John, have we done an internal?
We do a
Audit?
lot of internal audits already. Our auditor has done some auditing with our what we've done, but there's a lot of complexity related to the rates, and you need to bring a company that understands the different rates and size of meters, and depending on the company, it's a very complex process.
So we're pretty sure that with the savings from this outside auditor coming in, that we would actually be able to pay that individual or that firm.
Yeah,
Their
and
cost,
they
right?
don't get, until they find savings, they're not gonna get paid. So if they don't find anything, they don't get paid. So it's their goal and role is to come in and identify savings and corrections and errors that we currently have. We have found some major errors based on some of what the utility company has done when they've converted to different systems. And so there's one we're working on right now that could be up to $1 million. And so we're working on that right now. So there could be some that we could find with this company.
I agree. I think if it's not going to cost us anything, and it's always good to have somebody from the outside looking in
Yeah.
to see if there's some way of improving what we have right now.
I
So
agree.
thank you, John.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I agree. This is great. Thanks for bringing this item forward. It's just one more effort as we continue to look for the change under the couch cushions. Vice Mayor raised the issue with our upcoming, budget next year. So these are absolutely the type of things that we need to continue to do. So, John, thanks for bringing this forward to the subcommittee.
You're welcome.
And with that, do we have a motion?
I'll second it.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is item 13, network and telephone system upgrades.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a joint item with the Information Technology and Finance Department. Our CIO and CFO are here. This is a big project for us. It gets to the heart of what we do every day to serve the public, is the ability to communicate with them. And so I'll turn it over to Debbie Cotton to walk us through, and then our financial people will tell us how we will pay for this.
Thank you, Mr. Zucker. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to give this presentation this morning. We're really excited about this project. We're really excited to be able to work diligently towards replacing the city's telephone system. Just want to like to walk through a couple of slides with you, just to give you a high-level overview of what the project contains. But we also would like to come back to you next month and really give you a lot more in-depth discussion about where we are with the project. So first of all, telephone world has really changed. There was a time when you had a telephone system, you had all these, in these big rooms, you had all these big boxes and all these wires. It was really quite a situation. And well, it really was a situation. But so we're fortunate in some ways that our telephone system is aging, because we'll really get to leapfrog and really engage in some great innovative technology. In order to do that, though, because telephone systems really operate on the network, we really need to upgrade our network infrastructure. It's been a number of years since we've done that. A great deal of our network equipment has aged and has reached the end of its useful life. So that really will be the first part of our project. 85% of our existing network equipment will be out of service pretty soon. The other part of it that's really important here is that the vendor will not provide us any additional patches or what we would call upgrades, ability to maintain security. So upgrading the network is paramount. The next, as we mentioned, our telephone system was installed in 1988, replacing 10,000 telephones or some method of communication for 10,000 individuals, and it ends manufacturer support in June of 2015. Our future state is to be able to provide a single communications mechanism, because voice, data, and video has all converged into one environment. And so we want to be able to take advantage of that. We want to really reduce our dependence upon headsets. You know, these big telephone bricks that we have sitting on our desk, that really is a part of the past. And to the greatest extent possible, we'd like to be able to eliminate as many of those as possible, because that will reduce our overall cost of this project. Many people also are wanting to be able to connect wirelessly. We have staff that are in the buildings roaming around. Why should they have to be at their desk just to be able to respond to a telephone headset? So that's really part of it. And then the next phase of this project, we obviously are going to be replacing our email, yay, office productivity, and collaboration tools. And one other item that really is not up there is we know that you're very interested in the listserv capability, and that is also a part of our project as well, although it's not listed. So our overall goal is to increase our efficiency and continuity and strengthen our ability to communicate with the public. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Debbie. We're going to talk briefly about the financing. With me today is Randy Petrowski, the City Treasurer. Randy works very closely with departments on financing arrangements and has put together the information here on this slide and the next few. So Randy, would you take it away?
Certainly. So the overall cost, and we've been working with IT as well as the Budget and Research Department, is $35.6 million. There is not at this time pay-as-you-go capital available to pay for the full cost of the upgrade up front, and so we looked into various financing options. The best option at this time, we believe, is to issue excise tax revenue bonds. Estimated debt service, we estimate to be at $6 million per year, and that would be amortized over, the $35.6 million would be amortized over the useful life of the equipment, which we understand to be 7 years. So
we're looking $6 million over 7 years. The general fund portion will only be 21.4 million. The balance will be paid for by the enterprise funds. And the general fund debt service portion, the 21.4 million, will be approximately 3.6 per year. So why did we and how did we determine that excise tax revenue bonds would be the best mechanism? First off, we selectively use excise tax revenue bonds to fund capital and equipment needs. Debt service is paid, as you can imagine, with excise tax revenues, and we'll, in a slide or two, explain what exactly those revenues are. And all excise tax revenue bonds must be approved and are approved by the City Council. Some of the benefits to issuing excise tax revenue bonds: one, we can finance capital and equipment over time, so you don't have to come up with large outlays of operating funds at one time. Minimize annual budget impact, and also the low cost of capital. The City of Phoenix, as a government entity, can issue tax-exempt bonds. Our ratings are very, very high, which we'll examine in a minute, and so therefore the cost of capital is very low. Moving to the next slide, explaining, so what are exactly excise taxes? The biggest portion are sales taxes, as well as state-shared sales taxes and state-shared income taxes. Also included in excise taxes, which would be used to pay the debt service, are use taxes, utility and franchise fees, and license and permit fees. What is not included are dedicated excise tax revenues. For example, transit, the T2000. We have some two different public safety taxes, as well as the Parks Initiative. So those would not be dedicated and available to pay debt service on these bonds. The next slide shows our credit ratings. Excellent credit ratings. Senior lien, Moody's were AA1, which is just a notch below the AAA. And in fact, with S&P, we are AAA. That's our senior lien. We also have outstanding subordinate lien excise tax revenue bonds. Those are rated AA3 by Moody's and AA by S&P. All very, very good ratings. So staff is recommending that the fee subcommittee recommend to City Council approval to issue excise tax revenue bonds to upgrade the city's data computing network and to replace the telephone system, which has reached its end of useful life. An important point just to note is that this financing would not extend beyond the useful life of the equipment. So that 7 years basically encompasses the useful life of the equipment. And with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Nowakowski.
You know, so we're talking about $6 million, right, that we're looking at these tax revenue bonds?
That's correct.
And then we're looking at about 21.4 million coming out of our general fund portion?
Correct. Correct.
And my concern is this, is that the first month so far in July, I mean, we were forecasting, what was it, about 4.1% increase from last year? And now we're about, what, 3.3? And so the forecasting isn't looking that good for us. So what I'm concerned about is that at the end of the year, we're going to be back at a $40 million deficit. How do we prevent that? I mean, I would love to have better phones and interact on the internet with my colleagues and individuals in my district, but not to go into some type of a deficit that we're going to have to close senior centers or look at different amenities within our city of Phoenix. So I really think we need to think smart and look at a source of funding that isn't going to affect any of those types of programs in the future.
Thank you, Chairman Gates, Councilman Nowakowski. So I think a couple of things here. One is in terms of the budget, we are assessing that, and as you mentioned, we're looking at the revenues. Our overall year forecast was a 4.1% growth rate, and so that has to be achieved over a full year. We are going to talk about that growth rate next Tuesday as we're looking at that and how we can keep the budget in balance. In terms of this specific item, I think the issue here is not whether we have a better phone system, it's whether we have any phone system, which is sort of a good lesson for us, is that we've gone too long before we have replaced this phone system, really. And it was done because we were in the midst of the financial downturn of the last 6 years. But we're now at a place where if we're going to have any phone system and any network communication, we have to do it. And so that is a fundamental building block of a business that we have to build into the cost of our business. And so this is the way we think to do it in a responsible way. It minimizes the cost to any one budget year, and it gets allocated out among all the departments and all the users of the city for us. But certainly, it does build into our costs, but it's the only way we can serve the public, and we have to do this. But I agree with you. This is part of the bigger overall picture that we're going to be discussing every month for the entire fiscal year.
Councilman?
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So, Ed, so the $21.4 million, is that over 7 years?
Yes, thank
So that
you.
would be about $3 million a year.
That's a great
And
point.
it's not just all coming out of general fund, but it's coming out of department budgets?
That's a great point. It is. That 21.4 is over time. It's not all in one budget year. Yeah. So to your point, it's done this way to be a manageable amount that's built into the budget, and the solid waste and the aviation and the water and the wastewater, they pay their share, so it does not all rest on the general fund services. Good point.
Other questions, comments? I had a question on great points raised by Councilman Nowakowski. On the, did we not put money, is there not money in the budget 14-15 for this project, and if so, how much?
Chairman Gates, Mario Paniagua, Budget and Research Director. Chairman Gates, members of the subcommittee. Yes, we actually did, as part of our budgeting this year in anticipation of the expected costs from the replacement of this phone system. We did set aside about $1 million in 2014-15 to get ahead of this debt cost, which will begin in 2015-16. So that's not going to be spent this year. It's going to be used toward paying that debt for the general fund portion. So thank you very much.
And I have questions as well about, first of all, with the excise tax bonds. What are some other examples where we've used the bonds in the city to, finance the purchase of other?
Well, one of the most notable is where we're sitting today, right, Randy? Go ahead.
No, you're exactly right. This municipal hall building, as well as the municipal court right across the street, we use it extensively for public safety vehicles, fire, police vehicles, etc. So those are just a couple of the bigger projects that we use excise tax revenue bonds for.
And just for example, like in this building, what was the period of time over which we amortized the debt service? Do you happen to know?
It was in the 20 to 25
Okay.
year range.
Okay, so this is obviously a little shorter than some of the others, but I'm assuming when we talk about public safety equipment, that would be closer to this shorter term.
Absolutely. Yep.
That it would be amortized. And then another question that I had is, I recall this, a few years ago, we were talking about replacing our telephone system, and at that time, if I'm not mistaken, we were talking about a lease opportunity. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about, again, first of all, if this subcommittee were to approve this to go forward to the city council, does that basically prohibit us looking at the lease opportunity, or maybe talk about, why you're bringing this forward as opposed to lease? Kind of talk about the cost and benefit analysis of those two options.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe this action today would just move this item to City Council. If City Council approved the issuance of bonds, doesn't mean we would have to follow through with that if there were some other financing alternative that became available or more valuable to the city. So other options such as leasing with a third party is available to us. I think it would take some stringent evaluation, of course, just simply because the third party has to have a rate of return on that interest earnings, and our interest cost would be very, very low. The issuance of the bonds definitely implies a purchase of this equipment. And so the evaluation of leasing it or essentially renting it is something that we can work on with IT to determine if that's more valuable to the city.
Yeah, I'd like to see us do that. I mean, I'm not beholden to one approach or the other. I just want to do the approach that's going to get us the equipment for the lowest price, quite frankly. So if in your, professional judgment, this is the way to do it, I would accept that, but I'd love for you to go through that analysis and take a look at it, especially since we were considering that just a few years ago. I mean, we were quite a ways down the road. To your point, Mr. Zerker, we didn't do it, and so now we've kind of backed ourselves into a corner where we have to do something. I don't think any of us wants to spend money on phones versus senior centers or public safety.
Right.
I mean, there's no question, right? But unfortunately, we're kind of backed into a corner now, and so what we have to do is do it in the most efficient way possible. And I appreciate that 3.6 number is a lot better than 21.4, but still, we want to get that number as low as possible while still providing our employees what they need to communicate to the people, which is extremely important.
Mr. Chair, I think that's a good point. So one way also to look at it is that the phone system actually is part of the public safety system. So it's not that it's separate. It is part of what the services we provide. John can't route his trucks. He can't take calls from the public to provide solid waste service without a phone system. Our 911 operators can't operate and dispatch fire and police without a phone system. You can't communicate with your constituents in the council offices without a phone system. So it really is, it's integral to our service provision. And we want to make sure that, to your point, that we do that at the lowest possible price for the best possible product.
Yes, Councilman
Mr. Chair, thank you. The concern I have is if we approve this, then we have $6 million that we have to go out there and buy a system. And I really like to look at all the different options, from leasing it to, I know a lot of my colleagues in a lot of departments now, even people out on the streets that are doing their work in the city have iPads. We just opened up a radio station in Fresno where we have our telephone system all through the iPads and new technology, and it's just amazing. So I'm just wondering if we looked at all the different technologies that's out there, if we've been able to look at leasing versus buying. And once we approve this, I'm afraid that our staff's not going to go out there and really look at the other options, because now we're going to have to purchase it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, just as a point of information, we currently, through your approval, have a consultant on board right now, an expert in telephone systems. We have gone through the process of doing user interviews. We've talked to individuals around the city. We conducted a survey for city users. We actually had over a 13% return on those surveys, which I understand is really quite outstanding. We have champions in each department, which we're meeting with on a regular basis, so that we really understand the business needs and how individual departments use the telephone system to interact with the public. One of the things our consultant is also doing for us and on our behalf is really an industry review. We understand that technology has changed. As I said, there was a time when a telephone system would take up a whole room, and every parks department's got some kind of little telephone switch in a closet, and so that world has really dramatically changed. So as I mentioned earlier very briefly, we do plan to come back to you next month and give you an overview of what the findings have been and an initial recommendation. So we will not be procuring anything until we get your approval on strategy. This is really a presentation today just to get your approval on a potential financing option. We don't know what we will do yet because we've not made a decision yet, because we're still really learning to understand what our needs are.
Councilman, oh,
Oh, well, thank you. I think that clears up a lot. I was just concerned that we would stop looking for other ways.
Absolutely.
And even looking at allowances for phones that could connect to a phone system that's in each department or within the whole city system. I think we need to look really outside that box and be the first, maybe the first city to actually do something with their phone system that's different from the rest of the cities.
So I actually had a question for Mr. Young. I'm just wondering, at this time, it sounds like we might be doing some more analysis on a lease opportunity, what that would look like financially. I think I'm hearing that you're going to do that. I think there've been a lot of questions raised here. Sounds like next month we're going to come forward with more of the specifics on the project anyway. I wonder if maybe we could just kind of roll those two items together next month, that we could take a vote on the financing piece at the same time. Just seems like there have been some questions here raised, and you let me know if you think that that's something you could work with, and if my colleagues agree.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we can defer this decision until next month.
Okay, great. Well, why don't we do that? I think there's a fair amount for us to digest here, and I think we're doing that right now, but it might be good to let that process go, and maybe if any of the individual members want to further briefings on the, again, pros and cons of the lease versus the excise tax financing might make some sense. So thank you very much. We'll look forward to this item next month, getting into further detail. Thank you. All right. Next item is number 14, the City of Phoenix Procurement Code Update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're here today seeking subcommittee approval to recommend to council an updated procurement code that includes some special regulations for revenue contracts. Earlier this year, the subcommittee did approve moving forward with a procurement code based on the Bar Association's model procurement code. Prior to going to council with that, some recommendations surfaced from some departments such as aviation, CED, and public transit to make sure that we had a special section tied to revenue contracts to make sure that we were absolutely crystal clear with the vendor community and those who would offer services and essentially monies to the city through those types of contracts. We worked all summer with our friends in those departments, and we have come up with Article 13, which relates to those revenue contracts. James Scarborough is here with me today, and he is going to discuss further the changes that have since been made.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. James Scarborough, Finance Department. As Neil mentioned, this summer we spent our time working with those departments that have significant presence with their procurement activity in revenue contracts. And we wanted to make sure that we proposed a regulatory structure that was going to achieve the overall goals of establishing the procurement code while not creating new, unanticipated, unforeseen outcomes associated with the effectiveness of those revenue contracts. So we feel like we've accomplished that, and we just wanted to come bring you a quick update in that regard. So just as a quick overview, currently procurement is covered under AR 310. It allows for significant variations from among the processes, specifically due to the different lines of businesses from the various departments. But it does identify multiple roles and lines of authority. Because it is an administrative regulation, is primarily directed at staff. And there are certain business practices that are not sufficiently addressed that we would address in the new procurement code. So going further back on this particular item, Finance Department came to the Finance, Efficiency, and Economy Sustainability Subcommittee back in March of this year, proposing the idea of pursuing a new procurement code. And we came back again in April with a recommendation for that code to which you conveyed your approval. But we came to you again in June asking for an additional time to go over those aspects of the code that would address revenue contracts. So that is in fact what we did. We established a new article, Article 13, specifically for revenue contracts. It would establish those processes that would be used to solicit and create revenue contracts and address the unique aspects of those processes that would facilitate fruitful, enabling, and successful revenue contracts. So in Article 13, essentially what we've accomplished is following. We codify the procurement process for revenue contracts. That would include establishing specific definitions for revenue contract and elements of revenue contracts, including an option to perform the solicitation for revenue contracts in a two-step process. The process for revenue contract solicitations would allow for variability to evaluate based on revenue alone, qualitative factors alone, or combination of revenue and qualitative factors. All of that would be spelled out in the solicitation, but we would use a single procurement instrument or solicitation document to do that, so there'd be consistency from one revenue contract solicitation to the next. We also established the concept of best value in the evaluation of responses to a revenue contract solicitation. So going forward, we would like to proceed to formal City Council with the proposed establishment of the City of Phoenix Procurement Code in October of this year. We would like to establish an implementation date and do all the preparations necessary to implement the new code by January of the coming calendar year. And then the administrative regulation that will provide the policy support to this new code, we would like to implement consecutively with the implementation of the new e-procurement system coming online in the spring of this year. So with that, we'll be glad to receive any questions or provide you with any further details in this regard.
Thank you. Thanks for this presentation. Thanks for your hard work on this. This has been a large project, and I like, to your point, that this timeline that you set forth is going to dovetail with the procurement taking place, and which we're very excited about, the savings, potential savings that can be enjoyed by the e-procurement. And also, this part that we're talking about today deals with revenue contracts. And that's something that we hope to see more and more. Again, common theme here today, but as we're trying to bring more revenue into the city, we need to have policies, procedures, a procurement code in place that people are comfortable with, that's consistent, predictable, and will encourage those folks to enter into the revenue contracts. So I support what you're doing here. I appreciate the hard work on it, and in fact, I want to tip my cap to our colleague here, Vice Mayor Waring, is someone who, since he's been on this council, has focused on getting a procurement code established. Some people have been surprised that we don't have one, and James, again, I'm yet another reason why I'm happy you've joined us from the state, given your experience, where you can bring that to bear as we put this code together. So I think you are requesting action at this point. I believe that at this point we would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Yeah, I'd be happy to second it, as if we do. Yes, Councilman Valenzuela, just checking to see if you're there and would be willing to second this motion. All right. Just need to make sure that we have our quorum so that we can take a vote on this important item here. So
Vice
we
Mayor,
do-
you missed all the kind words that our chairman said about you.
Yes, don't expect me to repeat them.
I didn't expect you to say them in the first place, so imagine my surprise. I'm sorry, we got a big case.
Yes, absolutely. So there has been a motion made to approve staff recommendation with respect to the procurement code, which I did say has been one of the focuses one of your priorities as a council member. And so we do have that motion, and
And
would
it's been
see.
seconded?
And it has not yet,
Oh,
but would you?
I would like to second it then, if that's possible.
That would be great. I guess I did, but I would prefer if you'd be all right
I
that you
appreciate
take that
I will.
second.
Penny can write that down. It's good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Any discussion? We do have a motion. It's been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes unanimously, and we'll look forward to that coming to the full council in October. Next item is item 15, annual user fee review.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While the city auditor and the budget and research director come forward, just a reminder about this. An advance made, I think it came out of the subcommittee actually a few years ago, was that rather than doing fees on an ad hoc basis in the city, which we used to do, is it seemed like every agenda there was yet another fee request coming to you. The council directed staff to consolidate all that into one time of the year, and that is in February. So each February, the city auditor is charged with bringing forward a review of user fees, and staff then would recommend to the council any of those that we think would best be adjusted at that time. During the budget process last year, there was a request from the council to start that process a little earlier, and so this is the proper subcommittee to begin the dialogue. And so we have with us the city auditor who prepares this analysis and the budget and research director who is also part of that. We wanted to start that process today. It can take a few meetings here to go through it. You can see what we have from the past, and we can talk about what direction this subcommittee would like to go in. So with that, I'll turn it over to City Auditor Bill Green.
Thanks, Ed, and I think actually Mario's going to kick off today.
Thank you. Chairman Gates, members of the subcommittee, thank you for your time today. We'll just give a brief overview of user fees at the City of Phoenix and how the process works. I will start us off. So just a reminder for our public about what user fees are. It's essentially a charge for services that are specific to a subgroup, that benefit a specific subgroup and used by specific residents or businesses. An example of this would be swimming pools, where a fee is charged to offset those costs of providing the swimming pools, or vending licenses, where businesses pay a fee in order for them to get a city-issued license and recover the costs in that. User fees help maximize the taxes that are used for general services like police and fire, libraries, courts, and streets. And because we're able to provide those services, those specific services that benefit the subgroup, using the fees generated by those services, the use of those services, they may or may not be set to fully recover those costs, depending on the specific service. Back to the swimming pool example, those are not intended or designed to recover the costs. That service benefits a specific subset of the population, but there are some fees that are collected to offset those costs. However, with vending licenses, those fees are designed to fully recover the costs of those programs and the costs to issue those licenses. Those are for businesses that are operating within the city and have a specific purpose to obtain that license, and so those costs are fully recovered. The council did adopt the policy that the user fee review policy that is in place, and what the intent is to inform the city council by each March of any proposed changes to general fund user fees. That allows the city to evaluate these in the annual budget process when we go through that and we go through our budget hearings. We can look at all of those fees at one time as opposed to doing these piecemeal throughout the year, and it makes sure that there's enough time to get our posting action done to comply with state law, which requires 60 days ahead of time to post notice before any action is taken. And then, so each year the city auditor reviews the projected user fees and the cost recovery, reports that in each February, so we can take a look at that as part of our recommendation to the city council if there are any changes. And again, the goal is to recover the full costs unless the council provides a policy to do otherwise. And there are several factors that come into play. Legal constraints, depending on what fee and service we're talking about, the needs of the community. Sometimes comparable market rates with other jurisdictions come into play. Collection issues might be an issue. Other policy objectives, like we talked about with swimming pools, senior centers is another example, and then the comparability with the surrounding cities and what fees are for similar services that they might have. So Mr. Green is going to cover more detail about the specific process used to review those fees.
Thanks, Mario. The next slide here really just kind of at a high level sort of defines the roles and responsibilities in the user fee process. Fees and fee models are really owned by the operating departments. Once a year, the city audit department kind of acts as a centralized collection point. We get that information in, we do some high-level checks on the information for accuracy, and then we kind of consolidate it and report it to city management. City management then takes that information and uses it to make decisions in terms of new fees. Are we going to change the fees, or the fees stay the same? They make proposals to the mayor and council, and then the mayor and council is responsible for sort of setting the policy objectives in terms of approvals and recovery rates. The last slide here really just sort of addresses kind of what's in the user fee process, what's not in the user fee process, and gives a little bit of a flavor sort of in terms of what kind of revenue is generated from fees. So what's in the user fee process is basically 48 fees or fee groupings representing really hundreds of fees from about 10 different departments. And if you look at your city council report attachment 40, on page 41, attachment 8 kind of has a list of those fee groupings. So those fee groupings or fee revenues really represent general funded fees, or most general funded fees, as opposed to enterprise fees, enterprise fund fees, which really have their own rate setting process. So for water, wastewater, refuse, solid waste, aviation rates and charges, those kind of have their own independent analysis and rate setting process, and so we don't include them as part of the annual user fee process. And then the last dot points really kind of just give a flavor in terms of revenue by volume. You can see that certainly development services department fees and emergency transportation or ambulance transportation fees represent the bulk of the revenues in the general funded user fee area. Then there's kind of a big drop off into the 1.6 million range. And you see recreation leadership, which are classes offered by the Parks Department, as well as the rec center card revenue goes into that group. Municipal court default, which is a charge, administrative charges for failure to appear to your court, and then a pawn shop fee that's charged to folks doing transactions with pawn shops and secondhand dealers. And then if you were to look at the attachment, you'd see probably a couple more in that $1.5 million range, and then it drops off quite significantly again into the hundreds of $1,000s range. So that kind of gives just some idea on what kinds of revenue streams we're looking at there.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Any questions from my colleagues? Councilor Nowakowski.
You know what I'd like to see is, we have the fees and what's collected. I'd like to see what the expense is and what the variance between collected fees and the expenses are. That would be great.
Councilman, yeah, we'll put that in our next presentation.
All right.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
I appreciate you bringing this item forward. I think it's a discussion that we ought to have as you look at these different things. I mean, there are certain items where we might, as a council, think that we should have the full cost recovery, and then others, swimming pools kind of comes to mind, where it's not. But we, as a council, kind of need to decide what level feels right, what percentages we should be at. And I think that's just a much more transparent way to do the process in a much more rational way. So thanks for bringing this to us now. Again, as you said, Mr. Zerker, we did this very differently a few years ago. And this is a much better way to do it. So thank you for your work on this, and thanks for bringing it forward today. All right, and with that, it takes us to call to the public, and we do not have any cards on that. And then future agenda items, the list of the future agenda items is now being passed out to the members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One item that came up today that will be added to this is a review of our property sales in the past and a discussion of our process for that. So that'll be an October item that doesn't appear here. It came up today.
Perfect. And we do have several other items here for future agenda items. Any that my colleagues would like to see added to this list? All right. Well, if not, then this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.